If someone had told me 5 years ago that my younger brother, the same person who bullied me throughout childhood, who mocked everything I stood for, who made my life an unending series of humiliations, would one day be the father of my wife's child, I would have laughed in their face. Not because it was funny, but because it sounded like the most perverse, twisted version of reality imaginable. And yet, here I am, telling this story not for sympathy, not even for justice, but simply to let it out, to let it breathe, to stop it from festering inside me like a rot I can no longer ignore. My name is Michael. I'm 32 now, and until recently, I thought I had endured the worst life had to throw at me. But betrayal, especially betrayal by the people you love, doesn't knock on the door. It doesn't give you time to prepare. It seeps into your life slowly, like smoke under a locked door, until you wake up choking. My younger brother David was never supposed to envy me. He had no reason to. If anything, it was the opposite. He was the golden child, the favored son, the one my parents, especially our mother, fawned over from the moment he could walk. While I was praised for being responsible, David was adored for simply existing. Mom made his breakfast, his lunch, and sometimes even fed him like he was a prince who didn't need to lift a finger. His laundry, folded. His homework. If he didn't understand it, guess who was expected to help? Me. Always me. And I did help. Not out of love necessarily, but because it was expected. Because I had been conditioned to believe that being the older sibling meant bearing the burden. Even when it wasn't fair. Even when I needed help, David never once reciprocated. He was too busy getting away with everything. I was the quiet kid. Bookish. Shy. Obsessed with facts, fantasy novels, and later coding. I wasn't cool like David, who was rowdy, boisterous, and undeniably charming. He had that same loud energy as our dad. People liked him instantly, and while I wouldn't trade my personality for his, it made me invisible. Even in my own home, I never complained about the favoritism, not at first. I just adapted. But as we got older, the difference in treatment became harder to ignore. It wasn't just about chores or attention anymore. David crossed lines. He became cruel. He started mocking me when he realized my quietness made me an easy target. He teased my glasses, my braces, my voice, even the way I walked. He broke my pencils in front of classmates. He stole my diary, read it aloud, and reported concerning entries to our mom just to watch her scold me for being dramatic. When I protested, they both dismissed it. Boys will be boys. Brothers fight. She never saw what he was doing as malicious. And maybe that's because she didn't want to. He once put stones in my cereal. Actual pebbles. Had I not noticed in time, I could have broken a tooth. I showed Mom. She shrugged. That's how boys bond, she said. Bond? I felt like I was surviving a war zone, not living in a household. Even when David told me to kill myself during one of our arguments. A line I'll never forget because I was genuinely struggling with my mental health at the time. Mom's reaction was to scold me for provoking him. Dad wasn't much better back then. He was either working late or watching sports, seemingly too tired or too indifferent to intervene. But something changed the day David tried to set my hair on fire. Yes, literally. With a lighter and aerosol spray. We were in the garage. He thought it would be funny. I screamed. Luckily, he missed. But the smell of singed hair still haunted me for weeks. When I told Mom, she rolled her eyes. He's just playing, she said again. But this time, Dad heard the story too. And something in his face changed. Maybe it was shock. Maybe guilt. For the first time in years, he didn't ignore what was happening. He sat David down and tore into him, threatening to call the police if anything like that ever happened again. David was stunned. He wasn't used to consequences. And seeing his confusion gave me a bitter kind of validation. Finally, someone else saw what I'd been living with. Later that night, Dad knocked on my door. We hadn't had a one-on-one conversation in months. He admitted he'd been hoping David would grow out of it, that he was beginning to see his younger son not just as immature, but as cruel. I cried. I told him everything. The stones, the bullying at school, the relentless name-calling. It all came pouring out. He listened, and to his credit, he acted. He went to my school the next day and spoke to the principal. He enrolled me in an MMA gym that weekend. At first, I felt ridiculous. I was skinny, awkward, and terrified of getting hit. But MMA changed me, not just physically but mentally, taught me boundaries, taught me to fight back. The first time I used what I learned wasn't in a ring. It was in our driveway. David had stolen my pocket money, the cash I had saved for months by doing chores. I caught him as he was about to bike away with his friends. When he laughed at me, saying I could do nothing but cry to Daddy, something inside me snapped. I punched him square in the face. He stumbled back, stunned. I took my money from his pocket and walked away. He cried, loudly, comically. But when Mom ran out and learned what happened, she yelled at me instead. I was the bad guy. I was supposed to be the example. Dad, however, asked us both to explain. I told him everything. David tried to say he needed the money for a date, that I should help because we were brothers. Dad wasn't having it. You're lucky he didn't press charges, he told David. Grow up. It was the first real crack in David's golden armor. And from that day forward, the dynamic began to shift. He couldn't bully me without consequence anymore. But rather than maturing, he turned to silent rage. He stopped speaking to me altogether, communicated only through Mom, mutters of loser and nerd under his breath. It wasn't just sibling rivalry. It was toxic. It was hatred. I moved out as soon as I could. A scholarship to a top university gave me the escape I'd prayed for. When I got the acceptance letter, my dad was ecstatic. Even Mom seemed proud. David didn't say a word. He barely looked up from his phone. College was freedom. I made friends, built a life. I wasn't the quiet punching bag anymore. I found my voice. I also found love. Karen. I met her at a party. She was confident, witty, beautiful. A whirlwind. We clicked instantly. Within a year, we were inseparable. She met my family during Thanksgiving break. Yes, including David. Strangely, he was polite to her, even friendly. For a moment, I thought maybe this was the start of something better. We got pregnant in our final year. We decided to marry. It wasn't planned, but I was happy. I thought I had everything. A career path, a new family, a future. But the truth was, my nightmare was only just beginning. Karen cheated. Twice that I know of. Once with a married coworker. Once with her ex. I forgave her both times. I didn't want a broken home for my son. I clung to the idea that love could fix anything. That forgiveness was strength. That family meant sacrifice. But 3 months ago, Karen sat me down and dropped a bomb. She'd been having an ongoing affair. Not a fling. Not a mistake. A relationship. And there was a chance our son wasn't mine. I was paralyzed. And then she said the name. David. I didn't believe her at first. Couldn't. Wouldn't. But she kept talking. Told me they got close during that holiday visit. That he opened up to her. That he flirted. That she didn't mean for it to happen. But it did. That their chemistry was undeniable. That they had been seeing each other secretly for years. Business trips. Overtime. Romantic getaways. And when she got pregnant, she didn't know who the father was. But she chose me. The dependable one. The safe one. She chose me to marry because I was less risky than my brother. I left her that night. Packed my bags. Didn't scream. Didn't cry. I just walked away. Then I told my parents. At first, Mom refused to believe it. But I made her listen. I called David on speaker, pretending it was a private call. When I confronted him, he denied everything, until I mentioned Karen's confession. Then he crumbled, insulted her, blamed her, claimed he couldn't help it if women liked him more, that he was the better-looking brother. I watched the shock spread across my father's face. He took the phone and said the words I had waited my whole life to hear. You're cut off. College funds, allowance, everything, gone. You've betrayed your brother and this family. Figure out how to live with that. That day, I felt like a man standing at the edge of a cliff. Wind in my hair, weight off my shoulders. We did a paternity test. The result? David was the father. I filed for divorce. Karen fought for alimony. Lost. She begged me to stay in Henry's life. But I couldn't. Every time I saw him, I saw David. I saw betrayal. I moved out. Started fresh. A bachelor pad. Promotion. Therapy. Healing. And then, 2 weeks ago, David called. He was broke. Cut off. Karen was pressuring him for child support. He begged for help. I laughed. You made your bed. I told him. Lie in it. He cried. Pleaded. I ended the call. Since then, my life has gotten better. My father rewrote his will. Everything, nearly $2 million, is coming to me. David gets $1. Symbolic. Final. So why am I telling you this? Because sometimes the people we trust most betray us the deepest. And sometimes walking away is the only path to healing. But here's the thing. Healing isn't linear. Sometimes I still wonder, should I forgive him? Should I care that he cried? Should I care that he's miserable? Or is this simply justice? I'll let you decide. But as for me, I'm finally at peace. And that's where I'll leave it. I don't expect forgiveness to come from me again. Not for David, not for Karen, and certainly not for what they stole from me. It wasn't just a marriage. It wasn't just trust. It was my sense of reality, my ability to believe in love, family, and stability. They ripped that apart without hesitation. David may now live with Karen, raising the child he created through betrayal, but he'll do so without my name, without my support, and without a penny from the legacy our father built. And as cruel as it may sound to some, I find comfort in that justice. My mother still mourns the son she protected too long, but she knows better than to fight my father's resolve now. She stays quiet, perhaps hoping time will fix what guilt cannot. But time can't fix this. As for me, I'm healing. Slowly, surely. The scars are still there, but I'm no longer bleeding. I'm focusing on my career, my peace, and finally on myself. I've learned that being the bigger person doesn't mean letting people stomp on you. Sometimes the greatest act of strength is to walk away and never look back. I may have lost a wife. I may have lost a brother. But I found something much more powerful in the process. Freedom. And that, I would never trade for anything. Michael.